Hello, welcome back to Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master, guys. This is Robert, the narrator here, and this episode is a very super duper special supplemental episode because I have my fiance Kelly here. Say hello, Kelly.
Hello.
Will be controlling the pencil. This will be the last kind of character creation thing I'll do for these supplemental episodes. Not that they're not riveting and exciting, and everyone is just so excited about this game that they've never heard of before. Just kidding, of course. But we've done 3 of them. So what I have done previously is I've tried to see if my game could do a reasonable job at recreating fictional characters that people are familiar with. So the last 2 videos, I did one video. The first video, I did John McClane from Die Hard. And the second video, I did James Bond. Now, as I said in the James Bond video, James Bond is a larger than life character. And you really are not going to be able to make James Bond with a beginning level character. So that was probably a foolhardy mission. But we're going to try again a third time, and I asked my fiancée, Kelly, to join me. She doesn't role play at all. However, she is a fan of fiction. She enjoys a lot of different types of fiction, and I have already kind of explained the basics to her, so I won't have to bore you guys with that information again if you've watched any of the other videos. But like I said, she is a fan of fiction, and she is aware of that stuff. So basically what I've told her beyond the basics is just try to make a fictional character that you kind of remember their personality, kind of what they were able to do in the movie or television series. And what she came up with was Buffy the Vampire Slayer from the Buffy movies or TV series. And we're going to try to do a reasonable facsimile of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So we're going to start the process now. As you're probably familiar with the process, the first thing that you have to do is kind of prioritize your virtues. So again, we have aggression and diplomacy, we have honor and deceit, and we have leadership and collaboration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Kelly to try to figure out of these pairings, maybe which is the virtue that in her mind, and of course this is her opinion, was a big Buffy fan back in the day, which one of these virtues really exemplified Buffy, because she is going to, we've written down here, she has 7 points, 5 points, and 3 points to divide amongst these pairings. And the idea is that first, you take these 7 points and you divide them amongst the virtue pairing that has the virtue that's most important. The only requirement is that every virtue have at least 1 point in it. The more points you have in the virtue, the more important it is to a character. And of course, Kelly, as you can see, each of the virtues has a bunch of attributes that kind of define what this character is capable of doing when they're in action or not in action. So you would want to keep an eye on that. So I will say, in your opinion, Kelly, of all of these virtues here, when you think about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, what type of person she was and what she was really good at in her personality, what would you say was probably the most defining characteristic if you had to put them under these categories? Which virtue would be the most characteristically Buffy in your opinion? Aggression. Yes, she was a vampire slayer, so she was good at slaying. So that makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. So with that being said, you have 7 points, Kel. And you can, like I said, the only caveat is that each virtue has to have at least 1 point assigned to it. So you would want to divide those points in a way that you think tells how what was really important to Buffy as her personality and what she was good at. And I'll go ahead and let you make that decision. If you have any questions, please let me know. And as I mentioned before, the only other thing that you would want to keep in your mind is that right here, I'll try to get really close on that. You guys are already familiar with the advancement chart here. Actually, I'll go down to one of the other character sheets I have here, and I'll show it to you again. During the character creation process, your character is going to get advances. And right now, all of these attributes are considered to be D8 minus 1. And so when you advance during the character creation process, every time you advance, your die type gets better and better and better. So the reason I mention that is because essentially, if you want to be able to get one of the attributes under a virtue, at least up to a D12, you would have to, of course, have at least a 2 in that virtue. So that's the only other thing that I'll remind you of, and I'll go ahead and let you determine how you think what was important to Buffy. A 5 and a 2. Awesome. That is really awesome. So if I remember Buffy correctly, maybe she was a little bit diplomatic. We have gather information, negotiation, and telepathy under the diplomacy virtue, and that makes a lot of sense to me because I vaguely remember, like, they did a little bit of investigation, and I remember Buffy being somewhat good at gathering information. Like, of the other characters in the show, she may not have been the best investigator, but she definitely, as a Slayer, had to gather information. So that makes a lot of sense to me because that means that if Kel, during the character creation process, wanted to put anything in negotiation, gather information, or even negotiation. I don't remember Buffy being a super good negotiator, but no, she didn't do a lot of, she negotiated with her fist. Stop doing what you're doing or I'm going to punch you. That was her level of negotiation. But as far as gathering information, if Kel wanted to put some points in that attribute, having a 2 there means that she can at least get her gather information attribute up to a D12, which is really decent. This is really good. So that's really awesome. I really like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. So now we're going to move on to the 5 points. So now the idea is you want to look at the remaining virtues and figure out which virtue was secondary in importance to the character and divide 5 points amongst that virtue pairing. So Kelly, what do you think was the attribute? Oh, that is incredibly awesome. If you saw what she just did there, I'll try to move up on the. She put a 4 in leadership and a 1 in collaboration, and that is amazing. That is amazing to me because that is exactly what I was thinking. I wasn't the hugest Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan out there, but did we watch episodes together when it was originally airing? Yeah, we watched the television show together. You know, I wasn't head over heels about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. And so I'm familiar with the character. And that decision is exactly what I would have done, given the circumstance. Buffy is a great leader. I can definitely see she was a little stubborn and kind of wanted to have her way sometimes. So she was like, hey, I'm up front. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm the Slayer. You listen to me. And she, you know, she did work within a group, but you definitely couldn't characterize her as someone who didn't want to be up front leading. She was the most powerful and she was the main character in the show. So that makes a whole lot of sense to me, that decision. And of course, the last decision is you have 3 points. And obviously, the only option remaining is to divide those 3 points between Buffy's honor and Buffy's deceit. So, of course, the only option is to do 2 and 1 because it's only 3 points. And I agree with that. Buffy was a very honorable person. She was very trustworthy. I think most of the time she told the truth. So that makes a lot of sense to me that Buffy is more honorable than deceitful, though I think she had some stealthy skills, but she definitely can increase those deception skills if she needed to. But yes, she definitely is more honorable than deceitful. This character is coming out a lot better than I think any of the other characters that I made, because Buffy is not quite as ridiculously powerful as a lot of other fictional characters out there, though she was really a powerful character. But I think the game can simulate her a lot better than, say, James Bond, who was good at everything. Like, James Bond never came across a situation that he couldn't handle, so it's really hard to make that kind of character with a beginning level character. So awesome. That's incredible, boo. I like that. So the next step in the process is going to be what we call virtue abilities. So I'll explain that to you because I'll explain it again because to you guys, but I haven't explained it to Kelly. So Kelly, outside of character creation, these virtues are important when you are playing the game, which she never will. But if you were playing the game, these virtues would be important to your character outside of character creation. And the reason for that are things called virtue abilities. And essentially, I'll go over them really quickly, but I'm pretty sure I know which one she's going to pick. The virtue ability for aggression, you have to have at least a 4 in the virtue. So the only two that could apply would be aggression or leadership. And essentially, Kel, what aggression does is during the game when you're playing, you can spend an experience points to increase the damage of an attack by the value of your aggression virtue. So essentially what it means is that Buffy is so aggressive that she can dig down a little deeper and really hurt somebody more when she needs to. The leadership virtue ability, which is the only other virtue that you would have an option to do this with, the higher her leadership is, the more she can draw followers to her. So when her leadership virtue gets higher, she can have servants, other fighters kind of flock around her, and basically draw people to her because she's such a powerful leader. Now, I don't remember that happening in Buffy. You would remember better than I would. So which virtue ability would you think that Buffy would have with those two choices? Aggression? Cool. Okay, so what you do is flip the character sheet over, and really quickly right here under the virtue ability notes, if you write spend 1 dev point to increase an attack's damage by 5. So spend 1 dev, DEV, that stands for development point. Development point to increase an attack's damage by 5. So whenever Buffy is in a fight, she can spend some of her experience points to increase the damage of an attack. That's what I would have chosen as well. Awesome. You can flip it back over. So how do you think the process is going so far?
Okay.
Good. She's excited, folks. Trust me, she's really excited. No, but the reason I asked her to do that is because I kind of ran out of character ideas, and also as the creator of this game, having someone else sit down and kind of put their spin on a character lets me know whether or not the game can give people flexibility to make the character they want. So that's one reason I asked her to do it, is to get another perspective involved. So this one, the next part of the process, Kelly, is going to be choosing Buffy's career. Now, in the normal setting of this game, there are 7 careers, and I'll explain what they are and what they mean. So I call them paths in the game. Paths. And a path, as I said, is a career. It is the character's role within the game. Your path will give you advances in a number of attributes, and you will receive your total defense scores. Now, these defense scores, of course, tell you how difficult it is for people to do things to you that you don't want to happen to you. So, dodge is your ability to get out of the way when someone's trying to attack you physically with hand-to-hand or melee weapons. Parry is when someone is trying to attack you in melee. Dodge is when someone is firing ranged weapons at you. Psionic is when someone is trying to affect you with a psionic ability. Social is when someone is trying to interact with you and trying to trick you. And illusion defense, as I mentioned in the previous videos, is your defense against being surprised or someone sneaking up on you. So the careers in the game, as I said, there are 7. You have leader, and a leader is pretty self-explanatory. They get advances in things like inspiration, knowledge, tactics, and willpower. A scrapper, I think we're going to ignore that. That is very setting specific, but basically a scrapper is someone who goes out and finds hidden things. I guess a scrapper, you could think of a scrapper as being like Indiana Jones. He goes out and tries to sneak into places to find hidden treasures. A scout is someone who leads a party like in the wilderness, so they're good at survival, jumping around, handling animals, and things like that. I'm going to let Kelly make the decision, of course, but that doesn't seem to be very intuitive for Buffy. There's a shadow, and a shadow basically is kind of like a thief. A shadow is also good at sneaking around, attacking with weapons, very athletic. We're going to skip shaman because a shaman is a psionicist, and I don't remember Buffy having psionic abilities. If you could see her head, she's shaking her head no. Now, I think we're probably getting close to where we need to be. So we also have, in the setting that the game was originally envisioned for, we also have something called a war brother. And a war brother is the fighter type. They get advances in athletics. They get advances in hand-to-hand fighting or ranged weapons, intimidation, melee weapons, and physique. Physique is how physically fit the character is. I'm going to let her make I think the decision has been made.
It's
Sister. A war sister. Awesome. And so, yeah, that's what I would have chosen. And if this was the Buffy the Vampire Slayer role-playing game, I would probably call that Slayer. But, yeah. So we're going to go with War Brother because Buffy was good at kicking butt. So, the first thing I'm going to do, babe, is I'm going to give you your defensive stats. So Buffy, and you'll write it in the base and not the current column. She starts with a 6 in dodge, a 7 in parry, a 5 in psionic, a 5 in social, and a 5 in illusion defense. Okay? So for being a war brother, those are her defensive stats, or war sister, sorry. Now, advances. You get advances in these following attributes. So, as I mentioned before, this handy little chart here will show you how the attributes advance. Everything right now is a D8 neg 1. So I'll give you a great example. So the first attribute that Buffy gets an advancement in is athletics. So right now, her athletics is a D8 minus 1. So getting an advance in athletics will take her from a D8 minus 1 to a D8. So what you would write there next to athletics under rank is a D8. And you write kind of lightly because it may change during the process. Then, the next step is Buffy will get either 2 advances in hand-to-hand fighting or 2 advances in ranged weapons. So, of course, hand-to-hand fighting is punching, kicking, choking someone. Ranged weapons is shooting, throwing. So hand-to-hand fighting, awesome. That's what I was thinking as well. So you get 2 advances in hand-to-hand fighting. So it goes from a D8 minus 1 to a D12. So that's 2 advances. So you get a D12 there. This is going swimmingly. Buffy also, and this makes sense for Buffy, I think. Intimidation. She gets an advance in intimidation, which right now, is our puppies barking. So she gets 1 advance in intimidation. So that goes to a D8. Awesome. This makes sense for her as well. She gets 2 advances in melee weapons. So melee weapons is swords and so forth. That makes sense. And she also gets she gets an advance in physique. So physique is how physically fit she is. So if she's doing something that would normally exhaust her, or if she was poisoned, you would use physique to try to fight off the exhaustion or poison. So how does that look, babe? I really...
What's Buffy like?
I think so. Cool. Next step in the process. So now we know what her job is. Now... Okay, again, this is a concept that comes more from the setting than really having anything to do with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And essentially what this is in the game they're called birth signs. But essentially in the setting, of course, everyone, like in the real world, is born under a sign. And that sign is supposed to tell people what you're good at or what your personality is like. Well, in the game, what they do is they give you what are called expertise points. Now, if you look at all of the attributes, they have a column that says expertise points. Now, essentially, really quickly, and I explained this before we started the video, but I explained it really quickly. Expertise points are pool of points that you use to make your attributes even more awesome than they already are during gameplay. They allow you to do things that are called maneuvers, and usually maneuvers cost anywhere from 1 to 2 expertise points to use. Like I said, Kelly is not going to be playing this game, so it's really not important for me to show her this whole list of maneuvers. She wouldn't do that anyway. She would probably throw the pencil at me and leave. However, this gives, she can kind of tick them off to give an idea of what is important to Buffy. So, what I'll say, babe, is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 different birth signs, and all of them relate to a virtue. So what you would do is you would choose a virtue, and you would divide 12 of those expertise points among the attributes in that virtue. However, something that I did want to let you know about is, as you probably see, there are only 6 virtue, but hopefully I said there are 7 birth signs, because one of the birth signs is a birth sign called aliens. And in the setting that the game was constructed in, everybody plays a human, but you can play an alien. And aliens, instead of getting 12 expertise points, they can get 2 alien abilities and 4 expertise points. So, because Buffy is a Slayer, I'm thinking that maybe we would want to have her be an alien. And, she's not really an alien per se, but she's different from normal humans. Like, she has more ability than a normal human being a Slayer. So I was thinking maybe, what do you think about the idea, babe, of making her an alien so that she can have semi-superhuman abilities like a Slayer does, and maybe you choosing a couple of these abilities that may make sense for her? What do you think about that?
Makes sense.
So I'll take some of the alien abilities. I'll go over them. So as an alien or Slayer, can you see the quotes? As a Slayer, you would be able to choose 2 of these abilities. Two of these abilities. Chameleon skin, which makes it easier for you to hide. Claws, immense strength, so you're really, really, really strong. Infrared vision allows you to see at night. Plated skin, which means your skin is really tough. Psionic affinity, which means that you can get advances in some of the psionic abilities. For instance, telepathy, which is the ability to read minds and communicate. Biokinesis is the ability to use your mind to change your body. And also one of the things under biokinesis is to rapidly heal yourself. And the last ability is telekinesis, which is the ability to move objects with your thoughts. So psionic affinity could be good. Teleportation or wall crawling. So do any two of those make sense to you for Buffy?
Immense strength.
Immense strength. That makes sense because, yeah. Anything else? Now you could go. Now the one of the alien abilities is called plated skin.
That's the one I'm thinking.
But of course, this is a role playing game. So if she was to take plated skin, it doesn't mean that Buffy would look like some kind of armored robot. It could just mean that her regular skin, being a Slayer, is tougher than a human skin. So if she decided to take that, we could just say, you don't look like some kind of human armadillo. You're just that your Slayer body is tougher than a human's body. So what do you think, babe?
Well, it is. She is tougher.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, she's gonna be an alien or a Slayer, whichever you want to write down there. And we are going to choose, if you flip the sheet over under life backgrounds, I guess here, you would write immense strength. And plated skin. And what plated skin gives you, if you flip the character back over, what plated skin gives you, you always have an armor rating of D8. And you write that there under notes next to armor. So normally, unless you are physically wearing some type of armor, you don't have an armor rating. But because Buffy has tougher skin than more resilient body than a normal human, she's like she's walking around in a bulletproof vest all the time, but she's not. And what immense strength does is it gives you 2 expertise points in your physique. So under physique, 2 expertise points. There you go. Thank you very much. And it gives you +2 damage with hand-to-hand fighting and melee weapons. So we won't even bother writing that down. Again, she won't be playing this game, but you know that she would do 2 additional points of damage with melee weapons and fighting and hand-to-hand fighting. Okay, very cool. The next part of the process is to determine life events. So this is the kind of the part of character creation where random events happen to your character and gives you an advance from something that just randomly happened in your life. And so what you would do is find your virtue with the highest score from the charts immediately below and choose an event or randomly roll one from the chart. So we're going to randomly roll just to keep it fun. So Buffy's aggression has the highest score. So babe, do me a favor and roll a D8. She rolled an 8. So if you look randomly on the chart, she randomly learned how to use a ranged weapon. So what you'd want to do, babe, is do 1 advance of your attribute. So it goes from a D8 -1 to a D8. Awesome. Thank you very much. And then there is a recent life event chart. Okay. So this time, babe, what you would do is roll a D8 and a D12 and add them together. 11. So on the chart, it says student of the void. Now, as I mentioned before in the previous videos, the recent life event chart is to add kind of a random event that happened to the character before they started playing the game. And they're very vague, like student of the void. There's nothing in the setting or in the world that has anything to do with this. So that's kind of to prompt the player to come up with some type of narrative event or something for their character. And what it does for you, babe, is it gives you 4 expertise points in your deception attribute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. So Buffy can spend those points to help her do cool things with the deception attribute. And we are in the home stretch now. The only other thing that you need to do, babe, is to customize your character and then write down your life and win points. And you are thankfully done. She will be happy to. But she did an amazing job. I wish she would role play because unlike a lot of folks who really have to, it's a hard time for them to wrap their heads around this stuff. She picks up on this stuff like it's crazy. It's really great. But anyway, that being said, customizing your character. Now, babe, you've already advanced several attributes during the process. So what the customization part of this process is you get 6 advances. Okay, you get 6 advances. And you can put those advances in any attributes you want to kind of customize or put your flavor on the character. And then you'll get 8 expertise points that you can divide amongst your any attributes that you want in any way you choose. So I guess first I'll ask you to spend your 6 advances, and they work just like the advances earlier in the process. What you would want to do is maybe look over your character and see if there are any attributes that you think to yourself, oh, wait a minute, Buffy should be good at this. So I'm going to advance that. Okay, so survival, she put 1 advance, so that's 1. I'll keep track. Tactics, she put 1 in, so that's 2. She got that up to a D8. Awesome. Persuasion, that's an advance there. And of course, you can put multiple advances in attributes. It's completely up to you. Streetwise, D8, cool. Two more advances left. Stealth, cool, D8. And a D8 in, what was that? Knowledge. Cool, yeah, she's knowledgeable. She knows about demons and stuff. Awesome. Now, the second to last step in the process, you have 8 expertise points that you can divide amongst any of your attributes. And remember, generally the maneuvers that I alluded to have an average cost of 1 to 2 points generally. So they kind of gives you an idea of maybe how many expertise points you would want in a particular attribute. So I'll let you divide those 8 points amongst the things that you think Buffy would want to have a couple of other tricks up her sleeve when she's using them. Okay, so 1 in biokinesis, cool. One in survival. Two in survival. Cool. So that's 3. 1 in tactics. That makes sense.
What is security system?
Security systems is breaking into locations using computers and electronic devices to break into locations. So we just 3, yeah. 1 in athletics, that's 4. Oh, not athletics. She put one in hand to hand. I'm sorry, and one in athletics. So that's 5, right? So 3 left.
6. That's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 left.
Oh no, I think it's only 5 because these 2 you got from your immense strength, and those 4 you got from your background thing.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Biokinesis 6. Oh, you're right. You know what? You're right. You only got 2 left. And 1 in inspiration, and 1 in knowledge. Cool. So now the only other thing is to figure out your health and wind. Your health is your life points. So when you are in danger of dying, these points get used. And as a war sister or slayer, you have 21 health, and you have 35 wind. Awesome. Thanks, babe. I think you did an amazing job. I'll turn this around. That's it. So that is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think that's an amazing job. I think this is the one that turned out the best. Well, thanks for checking out another episode. This will be the last supplemental episode of character creation for my game. Maybe one day I'll actually be able to get an actual play online sometime. I know you guys are sad that this is the last one. Please don't be sad. I'm just kidding. I'm pretty sure no one is sad. But thanks for checking me out for this episode. I want to thank my beautiful fiance for helping me make this character and helping me figure out if the system can really do an accurate job at bringing someone's imagination to life or some fictional character to life. And I think it does a pretty good job. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever and whenever you are. Thanks a lot.